He has signed an executive order on reducing drug prices. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. He signed an executive order. Look at this. Lowering prices for seniors, for you, because you don't want to fix your diet. You going to keep on eating all of the sugar. You drinking Kool-Aid every day. You go to the store, you order a McCheese chicken hamburger mixture with all of the extra biggie fries, and then you're going to get a Diet Coke to go along with it in order to make sure that you reduce calories. Well, guess what? Trump is looking out for you too. Signing executive orders to make sure that he's reducing drug prices. Make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's rock.
The drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers, and they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries.
No, Jay, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me put some JL in it. Look at that Jumpman logo that you got there. Are you the type of person that wears Mexican Jordans, JL? Now, why would you want to do this? We've established in the very beginning of this show that what we don't tolerate, we tolerate differences of opinions. We want people to think differently. We like it when people disagree with us and they have a different perspective. But the one thing that we don't want you to do is we don't want you to be overly disrespectful. We would like for you to go in and be a good guy. Look at that logo. Look at that logo. That's not a real Jordan logo. It's not the real Jordan logo. That's the and one logo he got on and ones. Imagine talking to a guy that walk up to you with the baggy shorts talking about Hot Sauce's mixtape. This is what we dealing with, y'all. Yes, he got Ben Simmons on there. Listen, JL, calm down, pumpkin. We're going to give you another shot. Do not time him out. If he's already timed out, then there's nothing I can do about that. But don't ban him. Give him another shot. I have a feeling he's going to be more respectful. Now, and he's probably going to change his logo. Now, let's start this over. Trump is reducing drug prices for people that want to order all of the worst things and then get a Diet Coke. Let's continue.
The strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers, and they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for. And will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta. They're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric, and they get rewarded $15 billion, $17 billion, $20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. It's not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you.
OG Pope says, ladies, you can get your bipolar mask for 50% discount. Amazing. Thank Trump. Thank Trump. They do. The drug companies and the lawyers, we're not going to talk about the lawyers. Let's focus on the drug companies. The drug companies basically have a monopoly in certain areas, and a lot of times they've paid off the politicians. One thing that we don't like to mention, and a lot of times we should mention it, but we don't mention it, is that, as pointed out by RFK Jr., one of the Congress members that are the most contributed to is the Bernie Sanders. Yeah, the very ones that's flying across the country on the oligarchy tour with AOC, the biggest advocate for illegals inside of this country. They do. And guess what? A lot of times they upcharge here in the United States of America. They do not take care of what it is that we got going on here. And other companies, they then are used to subsidize from suing them and preventing them from doing business in the countries where they manufacture their drugs, and then they bring it into the United States of America, and then you'll have a Biden or somebody saying, "Hey, I negotiated with the drug companies." No, Trump just signed an executive order and says, "Listen, we're gonna cap it out at this. We're gonna prevent y'all from gouging the United States of America, and not only that, y'all gonna have to start meeting certain expectations in order to even do business here in the United States of America." Thank Trump.
So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically.
And that's true, because you can go over to other countries. You can go down to Mexico and get the same drugs or the same things for much cheaper. A lot of people be flying. Some people that live on the border actually walks across to Mexico to get their prescription medication and drugs that is then sold over here at an upcharge and taking advantage of American consumers. And so that is absolutely true. We are absolutely being gouged. And one of the reasons that we're being gouged is because they can take advantage of the insurance industry.
Shares in Asian drug makers are lower.
What I've realized, again, now that I've left corporate America, what I've realized in a lot of these instances is that, and I said this before, and people was like, "Huh, that don't make sense." Yes. So your company, a lot of times, will pay an egregious amount of money for insurance. You then will contribute it towards that insurance, and it depends on whether or not you got a PPO, a HMO, all of this stuff, right? And so they basically telling you to prepare yourself and deal with the symptoms that come along with your bad habits instead of dealing with the problems. And what you'll also realize is that, for example, if you get an ambulance, then they will actually give you a discount if you're paying cash or you're paying out of pocket versus what they charge the insurance company. So you're almost getting double and triple billed sometimes. And I'm not telling y'all not to get insurance. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it's a racket. The prescription companies, the drug medication companies, the insurance companies, they are taking advantage of wages. And when you look at your total compensation package, when you include all of your benefits and stuff like that, a lot of times your total compensation includes how much they're paying for your health care, how much they're paying for your insurance, how much they're paying for all of these things. And so a lot of times they're over here gouging, and because you guys are not familiar with what goes on in other places, you can't lobby for it. And these same people are really taking advantage of liberals, because liberals are the ones that vote for them, because they're the ones that fund the majority of the campaigns in these liberal elections. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I realized there was one medication that I picked up, and it was actually cheaper, or it was around the same price as whatever your copay was to pay for it with your insurance when I was in corporate America. And I was like, what? That don't make sense.
This morning, after President Trump said he planned to slash US prescription drug costs. In a social media post, Trump said that he will sign an executive order today mandating that Americans pay no more than people in countries that have the lowest price. Let's get more now with Katya.
And obviously, you see the drug medication companies or the pharmaceutical companies collapsing. Maybe not collapsing. Collapsing is that's pretty bad of a word. But they are getting destroyed in the stock market while the market overall itself is up.
Dmitrieva. Katya, good morning. What more do we know?
It's a kickback move. They incentivize your doctors to prescribe you and recommend you certain medications that you may not even need, because the doctors are basically getting paid by the pharmaceutical companies. It is a racket.
This would be a very big policy indeed in the U.S. This is a key promise from President Trump during both election runs, in fact, in 2016, as well as his most recent campaign. And the idea of this, which of course we only know from his Truth Social post, so still a lot of questions, but what we do know so far is this would revive sort of a most favored nation approach to drug pricing. In other words, the U.S. or a U.S. consumer would be paying essentially the same as the lowest price available elsewhere, at least on the face of it. So you think about buying a vial of insulin in Turkey for a couple dollars, it should be the same price for American consumers. Now, a lot of questions as well about how this would apply alongside tariffs.
Which this is also, and again, she's about to probably talk about it, but y'all got to understand, but this is also a part of the negotiation with other countries and what they're shipping over here to the United States of America, because pharmaceutical companies really don't even make drugs in the United States. They ship it here, but they sell it cheaper where they make it. And then they ship it to us and upcharge it. And then we basically become addicted to it. And then the drug companies basically is the new drug dealers. Actually, the doctors is the dealers. The drug companies is the suppliers.
There were pharmaceutical tariffs announced recently that would, of course, potentially cause shortages and drive up prices. Also, how it would be implemented, because Republicans themselves are not very favorable to this. They don't really like the most favored nation approach, as well as pharmaceutical companies as well. As you mentioned there, a lot of pharma stocks reacting very negatively to this news.
Yeah, particularly already in the Asian session, the likes of the Japanese drug maker Chugai Pharmaceutical.
Ain't nobody gonna be talking about. I told y'all that Luigi's name, it was gonna be popular for 2 weeks, and nobody cares anymore. Nobody's checking for him. They don't even know what his last name is anymore.
Leader Pharmaceutical as well, losing about 5% earlier on in trading. Katya, just talk us through which other stocks we ought to be watching. Of course, the European Open could feel a bit of this as well.
Yeah, of course. European stocks, pharmaceutical stocks in particular. We had in the Asian session, of course, some powers at play there, because there were some positive developments in the U.S.-China trade talks, which kind of gave a lift. But certainly European stocks, U.S. as well. When things get underway, Trump is supposed to be signing this, he said, Monday morning. So that's in a few hours when the U.S. wakes up. And we'll also be looking for more details, whether this would look like his previous most favored nation approach, whether it would apply to Medicare reimbursements, whether it would be narrow, for example, would only apply to things that were dispensed in doctors' offices or more broadly in hospitals. So still a lot of questions, but certainly we should be watching those pharma stocks when they open.
I know people.
The most favored nation.
I know. I shouldn't say that. Nah, skip it. Let's just go ahead and get into it. I know people who don't need Ozempic, who don't use it, who get it. And I was listening to a conversation. This was probably about 2-3 months ago. I was listening to a conversation, and we was in a spot, and it was like, hey, man, let me get that. And so he was like, all right, cool. You can have one or whatever, so on and so forth, because he had just had them piling up or whatever. He was like, oh, man, I've been trying to get my hands on this for a long time. And he was like, well, why you been trying to get your hands on it for a long time? He said, dog, do you know how much this costs? He said something crazy. He said something like $1,200 or $1,700. I forgot what he said. He said, dog, these is like $1,200 or $1,700 if you just got to get them straight. He said, but getting them on a prescription, obviously, what I was like, my ears perked up. I said, I'm sorry? He said, man, yeah, man, rich people. Hey, dog didn't even want to give him the Ozempic no more. He was like, he was thinking about starting to do some Ozempic deal. Real talk. He didn't even want to give it to him no more. He's like, all right, that's the only one you getting. Real talk. He was like, dog, they paying crazy like this? I told him right away. I said, don't even get involved. I said, don't do it. He said, He said, why? I said, you gonna go to jail. I don't know how they gonna get you. I don't know how they gonna charge you. He said, Anton, you so scary. I said, I am. I said, dog, we got too much money. We got too much opportunity. We got too much of a bag to be sitting here thinking like some dusty. Don't you do it. Stop. It ain't worth it, bro. Because all you going to do, you're going to become the plug. And the next thing you know, they're going to be raiding you. And I'm not coming to get you out of jail, flat out. You know, the way that my mind works a little bit different. My mind is way different. I can't put myself in a position. I don't know. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's not. Why even put yourself in a position to be targeted like that? I don't want that type of attention. I don't want nobody around me. I'm not interested. I said, you gonna be going to jail, bro. I don't think you should be. You can't just be selling that. I said, then you robbing an insurance company. Somehow, some way, somebody gonna send you to jail.